The Caribbean doesn't fit into one single image. It is scattered across the sea like separate worlds. In some places, the water glows turquoise beside white sand. In others, green mountains rise above the shore. Some islands live to the rhythm of music, heat, and salty wind. Here, every coastline has a different mood. Every island has its own language, its own light, its own character. And that is exactly where their magic lies. This is not just a vacation. It is an escape into a place where reality feels softer, brighter, and almost unreal. Where time slows down and the horizon promises a new story. If this kind of travel speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. There are still many places ahead that are worth feeling, not just seeing. The Caribbean is not one country and not one route. It is an entire region scattered between two continents, between North and South America, where the warm Caribbean Sea meets the Atlantic Ocean. This space is made up of dozens of islands and archipelagos, large and small, inhabited and almost wild. And each of them lives by its own rules. But the Caribbean is not only geography. It is history that can still be felt in the details. These islands were once colonies. Spain, France, Britain, the Netherlands, each of them left its mark. In the languages, the architecture, the names, and even in the rhythm of life. That is why different languages are spoken here. Spanish sounds alongside English, French alongside Dutch, and it creates the feeling that you are constantly moving from one world into another. Caribbean culture is a mix of many influences: African traditions, European heritage, and local customs that have survived through the centuries. You can see it in everything. In the music playing in the streets, reggae, salsa, dancehall. Here, rhythm becomes part of the space. In the food, where flavors from different continents come together. And in the atmosphere, which always feels a little relaxed. The climate here barely changes. It is warm all year round. The sun rarely disappears for long. And there is a feeling that the season never really ends. The Caribbean is a mosaic, with no single center, with no one definition. And that is why this journey will not be a straight line. It will be made of islands, of transitions, and of feelings that keep changing. Sometimes it will be quiet beaches with no people. Sometimes, loud cities full of music and movement. In one place, you will feel complete silence. In another, life that does not stop for even a minute. And it is exactly this contrast that makes the Caribbean so diverse and so tempting to keep exploring. The first stop on this journey is the U.S. Virgin Islands, a place where the Caribbean opens up in the softest way possible, without sharp contrasts, without overwhelming you. This is U.S. territory, but with a different rhythm of life, slower, warmer, and much closer to nature. Everything here looks the way you imagine the Caribbean for the first time. White sand, clear water shifting from pale turquoise to deep blue, palm trees moving with the wind. The beaches stretch along the coastline, and it feels as if the space is completely open, with no borders, with no rush. Here, you don't need to search for anything. Relaxation happens on its own, in the rhythm of the waves, in the warmth of the sun, in the air filled with salt and light. This place does not try to impress you. It calms you down and slowly brings you into the journey. This is where the first feeling of the Caribbean appears. Light, warm, and almost carefree. As if the journey is only just beginning, but you can already feel that there is much more ahead than it first seems. Cuba feels different from the very first minutes, as if you have not just entered another country, but another time. Havana greets you with colors and textures. Old buildings with peeling facades, balconies holding on through time, and streets that live by their own rhythm. Retro cars drive through the city, bright, loud, full of character. They do not look like museum pieces. They are part of everyday life. Music comes from everywhere, from open windows, from bars, straight from the street. It does not create a background, it shapes the space. Cuba moves in rhythm, slowly but confidently. No one seems to be in a hurry here, but everything is still happening. History is not hidden here. It is right on the surface, in the details, in the buildings, in the mood of the people. There is a sense of nostalgia, but it is not sad. It is alive, warm. Cuba is a contrast between time and the present moment, a place where the past does not disappear, but becomes part of today. And that is exactly what makes its energy so unique. Here, every day feels a little like a celebration. Even in the simplest things, you can feel life. And it is this honesty that leaves the strongest impression. Jamaica is felt through sound before you even really start looking around, as if the space itself has its own rhythm. Here, music is not just a separate part of culture. It is everywhere. In the air, in the way people move, in the way the streets sound. Reggae was born here, and it still defines the mood of the island. Calm, but deep. A rhythm that does not rush, but still carries you forward. But Jamaica is not only music, it is also nature that feels just as powerful. Green hills rise above the coastline. The jungle looks thick and almost untouched, and somewhere inside it, the sound of water appears. Waterfalls fall among tropical plants, cool, alive, always moving. Places where the heat steps back, even if only for a few minutes. Jamaica never feels still. It moves, in the music, in nature, in the people. And it is in this movement that a sense of freedom appears. Here, it is easy to let go of control and simply live in the moment, without thinking about time or limits. By the way, if you're enjoying these videos, please leave a like. It really means a lot to me. Puerto Rico feels like a combination of two worlds existing at the same time. On one side, it is a U.S. territory, with infrastructure, pace, and a sense of modern life. On the other side, it is a deeply Latin island, with history, color, and character that you feel immediately. Old San Juan feels like a journey into the past. Narrow streets, cobblestones, and bright building facades. Fortresses standing above the ocean, reminding you of colonial times. But move just a little farther away, and another rhythm appears. Modern neighborhoods, wide roads, and the familiar movement of a city. This contrast does not divide the island. It makes it feel alive. Spanish is spoken here, but it easily shifts into English. The culture brings together tradition and modern life. And that creates a special feeling, as if you are in the Caribbean and in a completely different world at the same time. And the longer you stay here, the more these two worlds begin to blend into one. The Dominican Republic looks like one of the most familiar images of the Caribbean. This is exactly how many people imagine a tropical vacation. Long beaches with white sand, palm trees leaning toward the water, and an ocean that changes shades from turquoise to deep blue. This is a place where tourism has become part of the landscape. Resorts stretch along the coast. Everything is organized, comfortable, and easy to access. But beyond the hotels, another world begins. more alive, more real. Mountains rise deeper into the island, tropical forests grow thicker, and there is a sense of space that is not controlled. Here, you can see waterfalls, rivers, and wild nature, places where the tourist rhythm disappears. The Dominican Republic is a contrast between comfort and nature, between organized relaxation and the real island. And it is in this combination that its special character appears. Here, it is easy to move from a loud coastline into the complete silence of nature and feel a different rhythm of life. The Bahamas look like the idea of the perfect Caribbean taken to the extreme. Here, water becomes the main element of the whole space. It is so clear that it almost feels unreal. Turquoise near the shore, and deeper with every meter. The islands are scattered across the ocean like points of light. Small, large, almost empty. And between them, water that connects everything into one picture. The beaches here look flawless. Light sand, soft shapes, and a horizon with no end. The Bahamas are not about sharp contrasts. They are about purity and simplicity. There are few distractions here, only light, water, and space. That is why this place feels almost perfect, as if it was created not by nature, but by imagination. And at some point, you get the feeling that reality here has been slightly simplified. But that is exactly its greatest attraction. Here, it is easy to get lost in simplicity and just look at the water for hours. Barbados feels more orderly and structured than many other Caribbean islands. The British influence is noticeable right away. It appears in the architecture, in the style of the buildings, and even in the overall rhythm of life. Neat streets, well-kept houses, and a sense of order that runs through the whole island. But this does not make Barbados cold or reserved. On the contrary, it remains warm and open. The beaches here are different from one another. On the west coast, the sea is calm and the sand is soft. On the east coast, there are Atlantic waves and wilder nature. This contrast gives the island more depth. The culture also brings different worlds together. British heritage and Caribbean ease exist side by side. You can see it in the details, in the music, in the food, in the way people communicate. Barbados feels more restrained, but no less alive. And it is exactly in this balance that its special character appears. Aruba looks different from the very first glance. Here, the Caribbean changes its usual image. Instead of thick jungles, there is a dry, open landscape. Cacti, rocks, and land that looks tougher. The climate here has almost no rain. The sun shines constantly, and the wind becomes part of everyday life. And it is this wind that shapes the island. It bends the trees, moves the sand, and creates a feeling of constant motion. But next to this, a familiar contrast appears. The beaches remain bright and clean. The water, clear and calm. This combination feels unusual. Dry land and a perfect ocean. Aruba does not look like the classic tropics. It is simpler, more open. And it is in this simplicity that its character appears. Less greenery, less chaos. More space, and the feeling that everything here belongs to the sun and the wind. It creates a sense of stability that is rare on tropical islands. Curaçao catches your attention immediately. Here, the focus shifts from nature to the city. The capital, Willemstad, looks like a bright mosaic. The buildings are painted in rich colors: yellow, blue, pink, green, and they all stand along the water, creating an almost perfect picture. This architecture has a European character. The Dutch influence is felt right away, but combined with tropical light, it looks completely different. The city lives slowly. The streets are filled with warmth and light, and it feels as if everything here is a little brighter than reality. Curaçao is not only about beaches, it is about the atmosphere of a city that creates a mood. And it is these colors that make it so recognizable. They leave you with the feeling that you have been somewhere truly unusual, and that feeling stays with you long after you leave the island. Bonaire feels quieter and more restrained. There is no heavy movement here, no loud cities. The island feels almost untouched. Nature remains the main presence, and people do not seem to be trying to change it. The water around the island is the main reason people come here. It is clear, calm, and full of life. Beneath the surface, another world opens up. Coral reefs stretch along the coast. Fish move slowly, as if in another rhythm. And everything looks as though time has slowed down here. Bonaire is known as one of the best places for diving, but you can feel that even without going underwater. The air is clean, the space is open, and silence becomes part of the experience. This is not a place for rushing. It is a place for watching and for fully immersing yourself in nature. Here, everything feels simpler, deeper, and closer to its natural state. Martinique is a mix of the Caribbean and France. Here, a tropical island has a European character. You can see it right away, in the language which sounds French, in the architectural details, and in the atmosphere which feels more refined. The towns here are neat, the streets are organized, and even everyday life has a different rhythm. But look a little wider, and another side appears. Mountains covered in dense greenery, tropical forests that look almost wild. Mount Pelée rises above the island. It gives the landscape depth and tension. And it is in this combination that its uniqueness appears. An island that feels familiar and completely different at the same time. Guadeloupe feels wilder and richer in nature. Here, the Caribbean becomes deeper and denser. The island is made up of several parts, and each has its own character. One is calmer and more open. Another is covered in thick jungle. This is where nature comes to the foreground. The forests feel almost impossible to pass through. The air is humid and filled with sounds. In the center rises the volcano La Soufrière. It shapes the entire landscape around it. It adds a feeling of power and the constant presence of nature. Waterfalls appear among the greenery. Rivers cut through the land, and everything moves in its own rhythm. Guadeloupe is not about relaxation in the classic sense. It is about an experience where nature remains the main force. And that is what makes it feel more alive and real. Everything here looks raw, natural, and still almost untouched by people. Saint Martin is an island divided between two countries. And that border exists not only on the map, but also in the way the island feels. One side belongs to France, the other to the Netherlands. And each side has its own character. The French side is calmer and more refined. There is more quiet here, less movement, and a light European atmosphere. The Dutch side feels more active, more life, more energy, more of a nighttime rhythm. But despite this division, the island still feels whole. You can cross the border almost without noticing it. Beaches stretch along the entire coastline. The water is just as clear and calm on both sides. St. Martin is a place of contrasts that do not clash. They complete each other. And it is in this combination that its uniqueness appears. This duality creates the feeling that you are traveling through two countries at once. Turks and Caicos feel like the definition of quiet luxury. Everything here is built around a sense of space and silence. The beaches here are among the brightest in the Caribbean. The sand is almost white, soft and smooth, and the water looks perfectly clear. Turquoise lagoons stretch along the coast, and it feels as if the ocean here is calmer than anywhere else. There is no sense of crowds. Even in popular places, the space still feels open. Hotels and villas blend into the landscape, without unnecessary noise, without sharp details. This place is not about activity. It is about peace and comfort. Turks and Caicos do not try to impress. They create a feeling of balance. And it is in this silence that the sense of luxury appears. Not flashy luxury, but natural, almost invisible luxury. The Cayman Islands bring together two different worlds. On one side, there is a financial center with modern infrastructure. On the other, classic Caribbean relaxation. Everything here works clearly and steadily. The towns look modern. There is a sense of order and control. But once you reach the coast, the rhythm changes. The beaches remain calm. The water is clear and smooth. The island does not feel wild. It is more organized. And that creates a different kind of comfort. The Caymans are also known for their underwater world. The diving here is some of the best in the region. This is a place where modern life does not get in the way of nature. It exists alongside it. And it is in this balance that the islands find their character. Clear, calm, and at the same time open to relaxation. St. Lucia stands out immediately because of its landscape. Here, the Caribbean becomes more vertical. The volcanic pitons rise above the island, sharp, almost symmetrical. They shape the entire view and give it character. Green slopes descend all the way to the ocean. The jungle looks thick and intense. and the space feels deeper. Here, nature is not flat or calm. It is dynamic, with changes in elevation and dramatic shapes. The beaches change too. Light sand alternates with dark volcanic sand. St. Lucia is not about classic relaxation. It is about a landscape that constantly holds your attention. Every new angle reveals the island differently, making you look around more closely again and again. Antigua feels simpler and more open. Here, everything returns to the classic image of the Caribbean. The island is known for its beaches. They say there are more than 300 of them here, and each one has its own character. The sand is light and soft, the water is calm and clear, and the coastline seems endless. There are no sharp shapes or mountains here. The landscape is even and easy to understand. That is what creates the feeling of lightness. Nothing distracts you. Nothing makes the space feel complicated. Antigua is an island of pure relaxation, without unnecessary contrasts. Here, the main things are the sea, the sun, and peace. And it is in this simplicity that its strength appears. A place where you can simply stop and do nothing, and allow yourself to fully disconnect from your usual rhythm and everyday worries. Dominica is an island where nature completely takes control. There are almost no classic resorts or mass tourism here. Jungle covers most of the land, dense, humid, almost impossible to pass through. And it feels as if it lives a life of its own. Rivers cut through the landscape, waterfalls appear among the greenery, and every sound becomes stronger in this silence. There are volcanic springs and hot pools here, places where the earth reminds you of its power. Dominica does not try to be convenient. It remains wild and honest. This is where you find Boiling Lake, one of the largest boiling lakes in the world, constantly releasing steam. It is an island for those who want to experience nature without filters, without decorations, without unnecessary comfort. Grenada is known as the Island of Spices, and you can feel that character right away. The air here has a different scent. Nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, all of it grows right on the island. Plantations sit among green hills, and they give the landscape a special rhythm. But Grenada is not only about spices. The beaches here are calm and clean. The water is clear and warm. The towns feel cozy, without too much noise, with a calmer pace of life. The island brings nature and culture together, and it does so very gently. Grenada does not try to stand out. It simply remains itself. And it is this simplicity that makes it special. Here, it is easy to feel the balance between nature, the scent of spices, and the slow, almost unhurried rhythm of everyday life. St. Vincent and the Grenadines do not reveal themselves all at once. They are scattered across the sea like separate, almost hidden points. Everything here feels calmer and less developed. Fewer people, more space. This is not one island, but an entire chain of small islands. Each one has its own rhythm and atmosphere. Some are almost uninhabited, and it feels as if the space here has remained the same as it was many years ago. The water around them is clean and calm. The beaches are often empty, and this creates a feeling of isolation. There is no large infrastructure here, less noise, less movement. This is a place for those looking for silence and space. And it is this remoteness that makes it special. A place where the Caribbean remains closer to its natural state. St. Kitts is a small island with a deep history. Here, the Caribbean opens up through the past. Old forts and colonial buildings remind you of another time, a time when these islands were important points on the maps of empires. An extinct volcano rises above the island. Its slopes are covered in greenery, and they add calmness to the landscape. The small towns feel cozy. Life moves slowly, without sudden changes. The beaches here are calm and open. St. Kitts does not try to impress with scale. Its strength is in the details. Roatan reveals another side of the Caribbean. Here, you can feel the closeness of Central America. The island belongs to Honduras, and that adds another cultural layer to it. The rhythm here is simpler and more alive. Less gloss, more real life. The beaches remain bright and open. The water is warm and clear. But the main thing here is the underwater world. Roatan lies near one of the largest coral reefs in the world. Fish, coral, depth, everything feels rich and alive. This place attracts those who want to see more than just the shore. And it is this balance that makes it special. The Caribbean, but with a different character and a more authentic sense of place. Here, it is easy to feel a real connection with nature and the sea. Cozumel brings the journey closer to Mexico, and you can feel it right away. The island is located off the coast of the Yucatan, and it combines Caribbean nature with Mexican culture. The beaches here are bright and calm. The water is clear and full of color. But the main feature is the underwater world. Cozumel is considered one of the best places for diving. Coral reefs stretch along the coast, and they create a complex, living underwater landscape. The water here moves slowly, and it reveals new details with every dive. Cozumel is the final accent of the journey, a place where the Caribbean shows its depth not only on the surface, but beneath it as well. Here, it is easy to get lost in the colors, shapes, and feeling of being fully immersed in another world. The Caribbean does not come together as one single story. It remains a collection of moments that change with every island. From quiet beaches to loud streets, from wild nature to cities with their own rhythm. Each island has its own character, its own atmosphere, and its own story. And it is in these differences that the true depth of this journey appears. If places like this speak to you, subscribe to the channel. There are still many destinations ahead that are worth not only seeing, but feeling, and discovering a world that is much wider than it seems at first.